stood behind and rested. So please forgive me. One topic and issue that is related both to the topic of the previous speech, which was Intidhaar, and which is related to what we're commemorating here, the story of Karbala, the account of Karbala, is what ensures, or how can we be sure that if or when Imam Mahdi reappears, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, we will be, inshallah ta'ala, part of his army and not part of the enemy. In other words, when we say Ya laytana kunna ma'ak in relation to in addressing Imam Hussein, what ensures that we would have been in the army of Imam Hussein had we in fact been alive at that time? That's a topic that I think we need to address, inshallah ta'ala. It's been related that a certain scholar who, like all scholars, engaged in the majalis of Imam Hussein and did rawda and matam and latmiya for Imam Hussein, once he was thinking to himself, it's not that difficult to know which side is the side of the truth. If I was at the time of Imam Hussein, I would have definitely sided with Imam Hussein. I mean, the 72 or 100 or so companions that remained loyal to Imam Hussein, they didn't do a huge job. I mean, it was obvious. We love Imam Hussein. I would have definitely been with Imam Hussein. So he goes to sleep that night. You might have heard this. And that same night, he sees himself in the desert of Karbala. And it's Ashura, and the fight, the battle between Imam Hussein and Yazid's army is raging. He is standing toward the army of Yazid. Imam Hussein is behind him. The army of Yazid, the soldiers, the archers, release the arrows. And when he sees the arrows heading toward him, and Imam Hussein is right behind him, instead of going in front of Imam Hussein and protecting Imam Hussein, he ducked. And the arrows hit Imam Hussein. He woke up in dismay and he was really sad. And he did tawbah for the thought that had passed his mind during the day. And he realized that in fact it's not such a clear-cut decision to make to be part of Imam Hussein's army. There are certain criteria, there are certain things that we must take care of in order to be able, in order to have the tawfiq to be part of the army of Imam Hussein, or inshallah ta'ala for us, the army of Imam Mahdi. As I said, inshallah ta'ala, the reappearance of Imam Mahdi is very, very near, inshallah. The first issue that comes to mind in relation to this question, or the first criterion that we must take care of, that we must make sure we have in ourselves in order to be part of the army of Imam Mahdi, in order to be on the side of Imam Hussein, is that we should make sure that we are heeding the call of the leader of our time, of the Imam of our time. That's the first and foremost issue. First, we need to determine who the right Imam is, and we need to heed his call. We need to listen to his call. The verse that I read to you on the first night, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما كان لمؤمن ومؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة في أمرهم. First, see who the leader is. When you've determined who the leader is, when the leader makes a decision, when the leader gives a command, you have no choice for yourself. You must follow what the leader tells you. مَا كَانَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَارَةِ. There is no option. If you give yourself the option, you are sinning. See who the leader is, follow the leader. Take the example of Sulaiman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i and the Tawabin. You might have watched the movie Mukhtar. If you haven't, I strongly suggest that you do. It's a very, very nice movie. Although some of the historical things aren't accurate, but the overall story is very accurate. The dialogues are very precise. They're very smart. And they very cleverly and very artfully capture what went on at that time, and it resonates with our time. Sulaiman was a known Shia. Tawabin, most of them were known Shia. Imam Hussein sent Muslim to Kufa. We know Muslim was the representative of Imam Hussein, but he decided not to listen to Muslim. He thought he was greater than to listen to Muslim. He said, I'll wait until Imam Hussein arrives himself, I'll listen to him. What did that lead to? That led to failure, that led to the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. And that's the case for every age, in every time. In one of his speeches in Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen, explaining the reason, this is the same reason. See, the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the time of Imam Hussein, the dynamics are the same. The basic rules are the same. It's the circumstances that change. So Amir al-Mu'mineen, at the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you know the history, all the fights going on between Muawiyah and Amir al-Mu'mineen. In outrage toward his own soldiers, toward his own companions, toward his own commanders, he explains why the Kufans lose and the people of Sham, the people of Muawiyah win. He says, وَإِنِّي وَاللَّهِ لَأَظُنُّ سَيُدَالُونَ مِنْكُمْ بِاجْتِمَاعِهِمْ عَلَى بَاطِلِهِمْ وَتَفَرُّقِكُمْ عَنْ حَقِّكُمْ. They are united around their falsity, their falsehood, but you are disunited around the truth that you know is the truth. وَبِمَعْصِيَتِكُمْ إِمَامَكُمْ فِي الْحَقِّ وَطَاعَتِهِمْ إِمَامَهُمْ فِي الْبَاطِلِ. You know I am the true Imam, I am the genuine Imam, I am the rightful Imam. You disobey me. They obey their false Imam. They're victorious. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. Look at what happened in the year 1979. The people of Iran, alhamdulillah, by the grace of God, came to this unanimous conclusion that they need to look up Imam Khomeini. And that led to a revolution that no one in the world had anticipated. No one in the world had anticipated. We're a little too young to remember the circumstances of that year, but those that were there and that were at an age that could understand things know that it was something that no one predicted. People listened to their leader, to whom they considered to be the Na'ib of Imam Mahdi, and that led them to victory. That's the case whenever we actually succeed in doing this. We actually succeed, or we commit ourselves to following and obeying our rightful leader. It's been related through trustworthy sources that prior to the 2000 success of Hezbollah in expelling Israel out of Lebanon, the leaders of the Lebanese movement went to Iran and visited the Rahbar, Sayyid Khamenei. Sayyid Hassan says that the circumstances, the situation was really bad for us. We had actually gone to Iran to tell Sayyid Khamenei that we have no choice but to pull back. Remember, Israel was still in Lebanon. Southern Lebanon was occupied by Israel. And the battles were raging. Sayyid Hassan went to Iran actually to tell the Rahbar, look, this is too difficult, we can't take it, we need to do a tactical retreat, we need to pull back and regain our strength, and we can attack, inshallah. He says, and he went to Iran and he said this to the Rahbar. He said, when the Rahbar heard this, his face turned, I don't know if I should say red, or in other words, disapproval was obvious in his face, in the face of the Rahbar. The Rahbar said, look, you are not going to pull back. You are not going to pull back. You are going to continue to fight, and you are going to win. Sayyid Hassan says, at that point, in my mind, I was thinking, he doesn't know the circumstances. We're in Lebanon fighting. This guy is in Iran. But nevertheless, he's my leader. I'm going to listen to him. Even if it costs my life and the life of everyone in Hezbollah, I'm going to obey him. He's wrong, but he's my leader. I'm going to obey him. See, when that discussion finished, it was prayer time. It was Maghrib time. We went, did our salah. After Salatul Maghrib was over, Sayyid Khamenei turned around, looked at us in the face, and said, look, you're going to win, and none of you in this crowd is going to die in this fight. None. You're all going to stay alive. He said, we were all incredulous. We didn't know what to say. So we went back, and we persisted. And against all our previous calculations, we we succeeded in expelling Israeli forces out of southern Lebanon. Again, that was something no one anticipated. That was something no one expected. He said, after the battle was over, I called our friends, those who were present in that meeting with Sayyid Khamenei. I said, tell all of them, I want all of them here. They all came to Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. Not a single one of them had died in the battle to expel Israel out of Lebanon. That's what happens when we obey our leader. We have to determine who the leader is, who is the rightful during the time of Taiba, during the time of occultation, who the true representative of the Imam is, and follow him. Even if we think that on certain issues he might be wrong, yet his decisions are hujjah, even in those circumstances when we think his decisions are wrong. Because Imam Sadiq, the Imams have told us that the Wali Faqih is your leader. Just like any, with regard to the fatwa of Maraja', when the Maraja' make a mistake, the Imams have said, you must follow their fatwa, their verdicts, even if you think they're making a mistake. So with the Wali Faqih, we must follow his commands, even in certain situations you might think that his judgment is not the right judgment. But at the end of the day, following his command is going to lead to victory. And this has been the case. This was not the only case with regard to Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. The same thing almost happened in 2006. Sayyid Khamenei predicted that they were going to win. And they won. So the first issue, the first thing that we need to get right, if we want to be inshallah part of Imam Mahdi's army, is to follow the leader. Obey the commands of the leader. That's the first. Second is basira. Basira. To know what is going on around you, what is going on in the world, to know who is on the side of truth, who is on the side of evil. Very important. Our Imams have praised Hazrat Abbas. It's interesting. In the riwayat, in the ziyarat, concerning Hazrat Abbas, one of the descriptions that is repeated more than once is that he had basira, he had discernment. Out of all possible descriptions and traits and characteristics, this basira is emphasized on a number of occasions. Imam Sadiq says, alayhi salatu wassalam, كان عمنا العباس نافذ البصيرة. Our uncle, Hazrat Abbas, he had keen discernment. Imam Sadiq is emphasizing basira. In the ziyarat of Hazrat Abbas, one of the phrases reads, إِنَّكَ مَضَيْتَ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ مِنْ أَمْرِكَ مُقْتَدِيًا بِالصَّالِحِينَ. You passed away from this world with discernment. You had discernment. You fought in light of your basira, and you died standing up for what you thought right, based on the basira that you had. And this is the key word, basira is the key word, that the past several years, especially since the fitna of 2009 in Iran, the Rahbar has been repeating over and over again, basirat, basirat, basirat. You've heard of what happened in 2009 in Iran. After the elections, there was a huge scheme to overthrow the Islamic Republic. All the forces that are against the Islamic Republic rallied whatever forces they had, whatever power they had, whatever potential they had, to bring the Islamic Republic down. And what helped them the most, the enemies, what helped the enemies the most, was people in the Islamic Republic themselves that did not have basira, and that's why they had that repeated so many times afterwards. There was a lot of people in the government and outside the government, among people, who looked at these eminent figures in the history of the Islamic Republic, who had sided with the fitna, and they said to themselves, well, these huge guys, these great guys, these eminent guys are on this side, so we got to follow these. They weren't thinking right. They weren't thinking, look, who is the enemy? Who is the main enemy? Who is the Taghut? What movement, what trend is benefiting, or is in the benefit and the advantage of the enemy? That's lack of basira. That's lack of basira. At the time of Imam Hussein, a very prominent figure as Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, he failed his test at his time to support his Imam because he lacked basira. Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah is the brother of Imam Hussein, the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen. When Imam Hussein was getting ready to go toward Kufa, on a number of occasions Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah came to the Imam and said, look, you're going to your death. You're going to your death. You shouldn't go. He was trying to talk Imam Hussein out of it. And he didn't join Imam Hussein, and he didn't let his children join Imam Hussein. Obviously Imam Hussein knew what was going on. He knew that Imam Hussein knew that he was going to his death. He had said that from day one. The problem was Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah wasn't understanding the dynamics. He wasn't understanding what was going on. He wasn't understanding what was at stake. He miscalculated. And this wasn't the first time he miscalculated. You've heard. After the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, he initially proclaimed that he was the next Imam. But then he backtracked when they went to Kaaba with Imam Sajjad, and there was a sort of a mubahala between Imam Sajjad and Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah. He took back his word and he claimed allegiance. He gave his allegiance to Imam Sajjad. But the fact is that he failed. Hazrat Abbas, the younger brother of Imam Hussein, much younger than Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah, had basira. Kana nafid al-basira. Muhammad ibn Hanafiyyah, being older, didn't have that basira. And he failed in his exam, in his test. There are many instances of lack of basira. A very important contemporary instance of the application of basira, is when the war in Syria started. Now it's pretty clear, after 3 or 4 years, the war raging, and ISIS going on its slaughtering rampage, it's clear pretty much for those who have any sense, it's clear who the truth is, who's on the side of truth and who's on the side of evil. But when it first started, a lot of people were saying, why is the Islamic Republic siding with Bashar Assad? Why is the Islamic Republic siding with Bashar Assad? He's not a very devout Muslim. In fact, in his army, he had prohibited praying. Did you know that? He prohibited praying in his army. He was a secular ruler. He is a secular ruler. Alhamdulillah, he's better now. And he wasn't democratically elected. So a lot of people were asking, what's going on here? Why is the Islamic Republic helping and supporting the regime of Bashar Assad? That question came from a lack of basira. They weren't understanding the circumstances right. One of the most important criteria is to see and look what is to the benefit of the enemy, of the main taghut of the time. Whatever is to the benefit, to the advantage of the taghut of the time, we got to stand up and oppose. Whatever is to the disadvantage of the taghut of the time, we must support. Even if it's not an ideal case, even if they're not the best people on earth. But because they're to the disadvantage of the taghut, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So basira. The next issue is, brothers and sisters, that there is no neutral ground. We cannot remain neutral in the war between good and evil. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات. There's two wali, there's two camps. You're either the wali of Allah or you're the wali of Taghut. There's no middle ground. You can't say, I'm going to remain silent, I'm going to stay aside, I'm not going to participate. That's not how it works. If you don't side with Allah, you're by default siding with Taghut. There's no middle ground. Again, back to Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha. In a very eloquent phrase, describing the people who claim to remain in the middle ground, to remain neutral, not to side either with Amir al-Mu'mineen or with Muawiyah, he describes them as such. خَذَلُوا الْحَقَّ وَلَمْ يَنْصُرُوا الْبَاطِلِ. Yes, they assume that they have not helped batil, they have not helped evil, but they have degraded, they have worked against the cause of haqq. خَذَلُوا الْحَقَّ. That's how it works. There's no neutral ground. Look at the people of Medina. at the time of Imam Hussein. A lot of the ashab of the Prophet were in Medina. But they decided that they would remain neutral. They didn't want to enter the fitna. We will remain neutral. What happened? Imam Hussein was murdered, and none of them expected it. If you go back to what they've said, none of them actually expected that Yazid would be so out of his mind that it would actually slay Imam Hussein. But that's what happened, because they reneged, because they failed to take action. And what happened afterwards? After Waq'atul Harra, 63. Yazid came to Medina, Yazid's army, and they wreaked such havoc. They did so much sin and insult and rape in the city of the Prophet that even today for us it is unimaginable. You've all heard of the Waq'atul Harra, which took place in the year 63, 2 years after Waq'atul Tif, the event of Karbala. That's what happens when you think you're staying on neutral ground. Evil will come back to you and will assail you as well. You're either with God, you're either with God and His awliya, or you're with Taghut and his awliya. Now again, to put it into perspective in our contemporary time, during the fitna of 2009 in Iran, which was a huge fitna, brothers, I don't know, for those of you who aren't that well acquainted with Iranian politics, there wasn't anything that the Tawaghit could do, and they did not. They did whatever was in their capacity, whatever was in their power, short of outright war, and they couldn't do that. That's why they didn't do it, otherwise they would have done it. But they did, other than outright war, they did whatever they could to bring down the Islamic Republic in 2009. They utilized all the political means at their disposal, all the media, everything that they could to bring down the Islamic Republic, and they failed. They caused damage to the Islamic Republic, obviously, but they failed to bring it down. Now, unfortunately, a number of the prominent figures in the Islamic Republic, they decided to remain neutral, because they said, okay, on the one side you have Sayyid Khamenei, on the other side you have figures that are at the same level as Sayyid Khamenei, so we won't take sides. And they would cite this phrase from Amir al-Mu'minin, from Nahj al-Balagha. Amir al-Mu'minin says regarding fitna and how one should steer clear of fitna. Amir al-Mu'minin has this phrase: "Kun fil fitnati kabn al-labun, la dhahrun fayurkab, wa la dhar'un fayuhlab." In fitna, in a time of turmoil, when everything is murky and obscure, be like a 2-year-old camel. Be like a 2-year-old camel. A 2-year-old camel cannot give a ride because it's too weak for that. And it cannot be milked either. لا ظهر فيركب ولا ضرع فيحلب. So these prominent figures said, okay, we will steer clear of fitna based on the advice of Amir al-Mu'minin. But then after it was all over, the Rahbar came out and said, look people, you grossly misconstrued this phrase of Amir al-Mu'minin. What this phrase means is not that you should remain neutral. That's obviously not what Imam Ali would recommend. What this phrase means is that you should not give any benefit, any advantage to the Taghut. The Taghut should not be able to take any advantage from you. That's what it means, not to remain neutral. So we've enumerated 3 criteria or 3 measures that we need to internalize, that we need to make sure that we have in ourselves to ensure that we are on the side of truth, on the side of haqq, inshallah, in the army of Amir al-Mu'minin. 1, heeding the command of the leader. Whether it's Imam Khomeini, whether it's Sayyid Khamenei, whether whoever else it might be. 2, basira. And 3, there is no middle ground. You're either with haqq, as Bush was fond to say, you're either with us or against us. It's true. It's true. Even someone as naive as Bush understands that. There is no middle ground. You're either with the good or with the evil. There's several other points I want to mention, but I think time has passed and we'll leave it for tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. Please recite a salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بغيت وبغي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أولاد أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Tonight is the 5th night of Muharram. We're approaching the night and day of Ashura. O Imam Hussein, Ya Aba Abdullah, Ya Rahmatullah al-Wasi'ah. Oh, the great door of God's mercy. We are sinful people. I'm speaking for myself. We are sinful people, O Imam Hussein. It is only by the grace of you, Ahl al-Bayt, can we wipe out and wipe away our sins. Ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, sallallahu alayk, sallallahu alayk, sallallahu alayk, Ya Mawlai, Ya Sayyidi. O Abu Abdullah, can you please do the same thing with us that you did with Zuhair ibn Qayn? Zuhair ibn Qayn was not a Shia. He was an Uthmani, meaning that he was the opposite of a Shia. His allegiance was with Usman and the enemies of Shia. But there was one short encounter with Imam Hussein. May my life and the lives of all people be sacrificed for him. There was one short encounter. Both of them reached the same station, the same way station, on their way out of Mecca. Zuhair didn't want to approach, didn't want to get near Imam Hussein, so he set up camp at a distance from Imam Hussein. Out of his mercy, Imam Hussein, out of his love for all mankind, out of his love for all people, he wanted to guide all people. He wanted to bring everyone in the camp of Allah. So he sent someone over to Zuhair's camp. At first, Zuhair didn't want to accept. Zuhair resisted. But then he was won over by Imam Hussein. We don't know what Imam Hussein told him. We're not sure what Imam Hussein told him. But the beautiful face, the beautiful words, the beautiful spirit of Imam Hussein was able to win him over. He left everything behind. He joined Imam Hussein. He joined Imam Hussein. He went all the way to Karbala with Imam Hussein and fought all the way to the end with Imam Hussein. Ya Abu Abdullah, on this night, please do the same with us. Ya Abu Abdullah, please look at us in the same way. Please embrace us in your mercy and love and guidance. O Abu Abdullah, Ya Sayyidi wa Mawla, Ya Sayyidi wa Mawla, Ya Sayyidi